Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I say good morning because I'm here in the UK, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
I'm Julie Hyde-Mew.
And this is On the Couch with Creatives. Fans and followers of the show will know that we're part of the Creatives Group, a private network for creative professionals everywhere. Together, we connect you with like-minded individuals, help you to create at your best, and therefore grow and develop your creative business. That sounds like a good idea to you and you'd like to join us? Do feel free to contact us after the show. We would love to hear from you. But as I say, this is On the Couch with Creatives. So Julie, who do we have on the couch today?
Today we're talking to Matz, and if you're in the international ballet world, you will know who he is. Matz was born in Stockholm and trained as a dancer in Sweden and Russia. He had an extensive dancing career at the highest level in both classical ballet and contemporary dance. He danced with the Royal Swedish Ballet, the English National Ballet, the Netherlands Dance Theatre, and the Rambert Dance Company. And following a successful performance career, Matz became a much sought-after dance tutor and consultant, leading to a variety of professional appointments, including artistic director of two national ballet companies, the English National Ballet and the Royal New Zealand Ballet. So let's get him on the couch. So hello, Matz. Welcome to On the Couch with Creators. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Judy. It's a pleasure to be here.
And of course, you know Melanie, and she's going to kick off today because what I know about ballet, you can fit on a postage stamp. I know I love watching it. I know what an arabesque is. But Melanie is a real ballet fan. So she's going to kick off today, and over to you, Melanie.
All right, Melanie, I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, I want you to do most of the talking and I'm just going to listen in rapture. I love ballet. I love it. I love everything about it. I love the costumes. I love the music. I love the story. There's nothing about it that I don't like. And my son, thankfully, has taken after me. He joined a little ballet class when he was ever so tiny. And he's come out of it and he is expressing an interest to going back in. So I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that I can find a class for him. But this leads me on to my first question, because the one thing that he did say to me is, oh, mummy, I'd like to find a class where it's not all girls. Because when I've taken him along in the past in the children's ballet near me, certainly, they're all girls. And you may get one boy or possibly two, but it's very girl heavy, so to speak. So how old were you, Matz, when you decided that ballet was the thing for you and that you were going to become a dancer? Because for boys, there is still a little bit of a stigma around it, although there shouldn't be. There really shouldn't be.
Well, I was 8 years old when I started dancing, and I did it because my mum suggested that it would be a good idea for me to try. Now, I must say, I come from a theatre family. My mum used to be was a dancer, and my dad was a musician and an artist, and so it was sort of a natural thing to try. And I started, as I said, when I was 8 years old, and never really thought about it as being anything odd, and I'd never had that problem. There were lots of boys doing it in my school, and in Sweden, where at least in the environment where I was, it wasn't perceived as being anything odd at all. So I think for me, it was an obvious thing to do. Having said that, when did I decide to become a dancer? Well, I had probably danced about 5 years before I decided I was going to become a dancer, because it just became a way of life very early on. I went to school. I started full-time training when I was 8 years old. So it just very quickly became a way of life. And then eventually when I was sort of 13, 14, I thought, oh, this is not such a bad thing. I should probably continue doing this.
Now, what I do know about ballet is that it depends a lot. A professional career depends a lot on your body shape. You have to be a certain height. You have to have a certain body shape. So obviously you did. I mean, there wasn't anything with your body that held you back at all. Then you were perfect for being a ballet dancer.
Well, of course, being a ballet dancer, there are some very specific physical attributes that are necessary to become successful at it and become good at it. I mean, it may not be obvious from looking at me on screen here, but I'm quite short, which to some degree defined my dancing career and the kind of casting that I would have throughout my working life. So, yes, that's true.
To be a certain height? Isn't it the same with men?
No, not at all. As I said, there are certain physical attributes that are desired, but there are no hard and fast rules. There are ballet dancers of all shapes and sizes, and heights and so on. So no, not at all. I mean, there are some obvious limitations to what you can do, but that's true in any kind of walk of life, in any kind of profession, that there are certain qualities that are required in order to become good and successful at it. There's nothing different about ballet dancing in that respect.
That's really interesting, Matz, because I heard Natalie Portman when she did her role in Black Swan, and she went through horrendous training to get her body shape into that ballerina. Obviously she's an actress. I mean, she did ballet as a child. I think she stopped when she was 12. But to get her physique into that shape was grueling. I read the article of the swimming and the dance and everything else that she went through. And she'd said in her article that somebody had said to her, "Oh, well, look, I know I could tell that you weren't a ballet dancer because the gap between like the bottom of your neck and the top of your shoulders, it was like an inch too short or something. So we could tell you're not a professional from that." And I've heard stories about the chorus line or the corps de ballet having to be like the same height and the same shape.
Two things about the Black Swan. First of all, that movie wasn't really a true representation of the profession. And the other thing is that Natalie Portman, she wasn't a ballet dancer. She had trained in order to take on that shape and so on. Ballet dancers will have trained since they were children, so that's not an issue for them.
That's true. That's true. Your legs and arms are kind of elongated because you do the exercises and the things that you do, I guess, and you've got that natural. I bet you walk very elegantly, Matz, don't you?
Well, I think most ballet dancers have a certain quality of deportment which is very attractive. Absolutely. Yeah. And that comes with the training, and absolutely, why not? That's a wonderful thing.
It is. It's beautiful, but a natural elegance and a natural grace of movement. You can tell dancers anywhere when they move. You can. Let's
go back to your training then. So you started at 8 and you trained in Sweden, and then at some stage you also went to Russia to train.
Yes, I went to Russia later on. I trained for about 10 years. I was in schooling for 10 years, and like in any skill that you want to develop, you need 10,000 hours under your belt in order to become good at it. I mean, that's required. And I think sometimes it's underestimated how much work it goes into making a ballet dancer. And when I say making a ballet dancer, is because now anyone can learn to ballet dance. Only a few people will become good at it, and fewer still will become successful. So yeah, that's why it takes a long time.
Yeah, it's a hard life though, isn't it, Matz? I mean, you ballet, for all the grace and all the elegance, it's not really a natural thing to force your body to do. Some of the positions that you put your feet and your body in, the leaps and the jump, a bit like ice skating, really, that I love that as well. But it takes a toll on the body, and dancers dance for hours and hours and hours at a time to practice, and it's a strain on the body.
Well, ballet dancing is an athletic skill, and it requires a lot of work. Yes, that's true. But so does a lot of things. I mean, being a track athlete requires the same sort of commitment. So in that respect, it's nothing different. It's just, it's hard work. Sure, it's hard work, but it's a good way of life. It's not a hard, so obviously it's been, for me, it's been a lovely way of life. So I have no complaints.
Did you find when you came to England, so growing up in Sweden, there were a lot of boys doing ballet, and it was very natural, and you didn't really think about becoming a dancer necessarily. When you come over to England, did you notice a shortage of boys in the ballet, or again, is that a myth? Are there a lot of boys coming through ballet?
I mean, it's true that there are fewer boys training to become ballet dancers than there are girls. I mean, it's the whole thing about, for girls, being the princess and the ballerina and the tutu and the dress up and all of that. Of course, it's a completely different thing. So yes, sometimes we wish there was more boys that were seeking out it, but actually, when you're looking at ballet training at a high level, and I'm not talking about sort of just going ballet classes as a sort of after school activity. I'm talking about kids that are training seriously. There are actually many more boys at that level than you would find in the sort of leisure sector, as it were.
That's good to know. That's good to know, because I saw a program. It was a long time ago now, and I think it was called A Year with the English National Ballet, of which you were a director at one time. We'll talk about that in a moment. And the camera crew sort of followed the English National Ballet over the course of a year, and did the filming behind the scenes and what went in. It was lovely. But they did have an emphasis, and again, all program makers do have an emphasis on what they want to show, that there were much fewer, that the boys had to work a lot harder and often had multiple roles, because and they had to work a lot harder because there were a lot fewer of them than there were of the girls.
I would disagree with that. I think the girls work a lot harder in the ballet company than the boys. The boys get away with a lot more. The girls are the backbone of any ballet company. The corps de ballet, they are the ones that are really working hard. The ladies, and that's where that backbone of a ballet company is amongst the corps de ballet girls and the soloist girls. Absolutely.
There you go girls.
So when you obviously became a professional ballet dancer and contemporary dancer as well, so you must have spent your entire career as a performance dancer, traveling around the world, performing all over the place.
Well, yes, I mean that was what is one of the attractive parts of the job. Being able to travel and being able to, because dancing is, of course, an international thing. It's not limited by language like theater or something like that. So the ballet world tends to be quite international. So you can go anywhere in the world and get a job. I mean, it's not always easy, naturally, but that's one of the things. And one of the reasons why I came to England was because here in the United Kingdom, compared to Sweden, there was many more opportunities to have a career here in this country. And when I first came to England, which is now many years ago, 1979, I first arrived in England to seek adventure, fame and fortune. At the time, there was a lot more going on here. And I really, there was many more directions for me to choose from, and to more work to do, basically.
What about different training styles? So you're from Sweden, and then you trained in Russia, and then you've come over to England. Are they all on a par with each other, or would you say? Because when I think of the Russian ballet, I do think that, oh my God, they train a lot harder than the rest of the world, because they're just amazing. Is that true, or is that another myth? Or you all work very hard, but do the Russians really?
Well, I was trained in the Vaganova system, which is fundamentally the Russian system of training, and it's a very, very solid training system. So they do. I wouldn't say that the Russians work any harder. They just got a different style of training. But That being said, nowadays, I think you'll find that ballet training has become much more universal, which I suppose has to do with the globalization in general in life and in business and in culture and so on. So I think nowadays there's not such great difference. I mean, if you go back 50 years in time, you would have known there was a difference between dancers, French dancers versus English dancers versus the Russians or the Italians or the Scandinavians, for instance. You would have been able to really distinguish the difference. Today, there's not so much of a stylistic difference between dancers.
People forget it's not so long ago that when Russia was still, the Soviet Union, ballet was very strict and very conservative, and ballet dancers were not allowed to any freedom of movement or any kind of contemporary dance. I remember Baryshnikov. He defected because he wanted to do more contemporary dance and he wasn't allowed to.
That's right. Well,
that it's not that long ago.
Yeah, well, I was studied in Russia in the 1970s and towards the end of the 1970s when it was still very much the Soviet Union. And that's right. I mean, the repertoire that the Russian dance companies worked with was much more narrower and much more traditional. It was basically the classical ballet repertoire with a few other bits and pieces in it. So it's true. I mean, but nowadays, I think it's quite different, even in Russia.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yes, well, as you said, it's become more international, and even if there are still some political divides with Russia and the rest of the world, culturally, sports-wise, or whatever, there is so much more freedom now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. You've had a very long career in the ballet. What is your favourite ballet to dance? Could you pick one, or is that a really mean question?
Yeah, that's one of those questions that is almost impossible to answer. I mean, everybody wants to say, well, what's your favorite role? Which is your favorite ballet and so on? And of course, it's very hard to pick. There are certain things that I've done in my career that I've enjoyed more than others. Yes, that's true. But I really would find it quite difficult to pinpoint one thing or two things that are of particular importance. I mean, in the classical ballet repertoire, I suppose I was quite a good Romeo in Romeo and Juliet. That was a role that seemed to suit me quite well, I think. I wasn't so much of the Swan Lake Prince type dancer. I was a different type. So I suppose in that respect, yes, maybe let's say Romeo and Juliet in that case.
It's more like a rambunctious teenager who's quite willing to pull out a knife if somebody disagrees with him.
Oh.
So who did you dance with? Throw out some famous names here.
Who did I dance with? The people. I mean, I had the great privilege to work with Rudolf Nureyev quite often whilst he was still dancing. And yes, I mean, I have my dancing career spans most of the 70s and most of the 80s. So, which is quite a long time ago. And I had a privilege to work at quite a high level within the profession. So I came across a lot of the leading people of that time, good choreographers and dancers. I mean, it's hard to now recall and mention all of them. But I mean, one thing that was particularly important to me was a person that had great influence on me was Rudolf Nureyev, because his career through when he left Soviet Union and until he died sort of more or less coincided with the time that I danced. And I remember when he passed away that it was a great shock because I felt it was sort of an end of an era. And when he passed away, it was also at the same time when I was myself coming towards the end of my own dancing career. So it felt,
but you must have known like people like Margot Fonteyn, all those huge names in ballet at that time.
I did meet her, yes. I never worked with her, but I did meet her, certainly.
They're just, I mean, Rudolf Nureyev, I mean, he was just a character as well, wasn't he, with a capital C, not just a dancer. He was a character. And and his story, I remember seeing again a program on him, and it blew my mind, because again he was I think one of the first ballet that he saw, he got smuggled in under his mother's skirts, I think, and he saw the ballet in the theatre, and he made up his mind then and there he was going to dance, and not only was he going to dance, he was going to be the best dancer in the world. He made that kind of say, and he was really, I mean, he just, to watch him dance is just, it takes your breath away.
Still today, he has a really strong appeal when you see old film recordings of him. I mean, he was a great personality, and still unsurpassed in many ways.
Yeah.
Was he the one that they always said when he leapt up in the air, he actually hovered before he came down? Was it him they were speaking about?
He's you have to watch him, Julie. That'll answer your question.
I can remember reading somewhere that there was one particular ballet dance, and I'm sure it was him, where they said it was just almost phenomenal. He would take a leap and then hover, and then it was almost as if he was levitating.
I was a strong jumper as a dancer. I wasn't good at turning and doing pirouettes, but I was good at jumping, and I had the ability of doing that hovering. Of course, it's not truly hovering, but it's giving an impression of suspend. You suspend the movement up at the height of a jump, and it gives that impression of hovering.
So it wasn't just him. You could do it too.
So I was told, yes.
It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful to watch, and it just is. Rudolph, I could just sit and be quite happy on the sofa and just watch him in the ballet all day, every day for at least a week. It's phenomenal. But whenever I watch the ballet, I have to say the strength and the power of dancers, and we touched on it a bit earlier. My husband nearly had a freak out because I wanted my son to go into ballet. Oh, can't do that, you'll get all effeminate. I was like, Colin, have you seen the dancers that you cannot call a dancer effeminate, a male dancer? I said, if you put them next to a rugby player, you'd be hard pressed to really tell who's who. The muscles that they have in their arms, their body, and their legs. I mean, the strength of them. I wouldn't want to pick a fight with a ballet dancer, quite frankly.
I'm not sure how much rugby players and ballet dancers got in common, but that's an interesting thought. But apparently, soccer players develop very similar leg muscles to ballet dancers.
That's because they do ballet training. Did you know that? There was an interview with some Premier football team, and a lot of the footballers do ballet exercises, especially sort of for their legs, for the strength in their legs, because they need it, and so they get the strength conditioning from the ballet training that they need.
There you go.
On the field. So that's what I said to my husband. I said, "You say that." I said, "But Premier League footballers do ballet training, so they've got the strength in their quads and their core that they need to do those moves on the field. So it's not it's not a feminine thing at all. You can't say that. It's
silly. People need to get rid of this whole idea that you have to be effeminate and gay to be a male ballet dancer. At any given time, any top national soccer or rugby team, a third of the men will be gay. So
the thing is that of course, in the ballet world, in the theatre in general, of course, it's a kind of profession that attracts quite a lot of gay people, and that's fine. But to go from there to believing that every ballet dancer is gay is absolutely wrong. I'm not. I went through the entire profession without becoming gay. So there you go. But I mean, I don't think really that should be an issue anyway.
No, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous, yeah.
It's a profession that allows a lot of self-expression, and that where you become allowed to be yourself. So of course it will attract people that are sometimes a little bit different and perhaps have a slightly different way of being. But that's what makes it wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you are married and you do have children. Do your children also, are they ballet dancers?
No, they're not ballet dancers. I've got two adult boys and they're doing other things. One is a musician, one works in the theater. But so they're still sort of in the general area.
Still creative family, still creative family. I think that's lovely. Yeah, my son is following in my footsteps. He is very much into drama. He is, oh, I didn't, my son has just signed up to look for an agent for himself with his drama school. He's got to audition next year for it, but he's now said, yes, mummy, I want to do that. So watch this space. But he's, he loves the drama, he loves the dance, he loves it, and I'm wholeheartedly support that, because you do get different people in the creative industries. We are a bunch of people, like you say, art and dance and music. You can be yourself, and you don't have to be constrained by all this rubbish that's out there. You can be free in the arts.
And long may it last.
Absolutely, I love it. But we're going to talk about your career after the dance now, because obviously another thing that not just limited to ballet, but a lot of professional sports people have limited lifespans in their careers, because obviously the trauma and the stress they put on their body. You don't tend to see very old ballet dancers on the stage for the same reason you don't see very old football players or whatever in the Premier League. So what is the average sort of lifespan for a dancer, would you say? And when that career, when your career came to an end, what did you find yourself thinking about of moving on from the stage?
Well, the dancing career comes to the end. Like any sort of athletic kind of pursuit, you come to a certain time in your life when it becomes more difficult to sustain yourself and your technique and your strength and so on. And I suppose usually dancers somewhere in the mid to late 30s tend to drift out of the profession. There are the occasional person who lasts a lot longer, but that's circumstances allow them to do that. But I would say, so mid to late 30s, most dancers tend to sort of move on into different directions.
The same for players and rugby players, isn't it? By the time they hit their late 30s, they're sort of going into training or coaching or the insurance industry.
Yes, insurance salesmanship. Yeah, why not?
No.
I mean, when I came to that point and I started to feel that it was becoming a lot of hard work in order just to stay on the spot, technically and strength-wise. And I always had aspirations in moving on in the profession into sort of leadership positions and somehow continue to contribute even if I wasn't on stage. It was always part of my thinking. It's just a natural sort of progression. I was seeking out opportunities. First, I started to become a ballet teacher because that was the most obvious first step to take. And then through there, I got more and more connections and so on. And I was ambitious. I was looking out for career opportunities, for career advancement, and I was successful in that in due course.
Yeah, you became the artistic director for two national ballet companies.
The Royal New Zealand Ballet and English National Ballet. That's right. Yeah.
Wonderful.
You were a main honcho.
The main honcho. Well, I don't know.
And you're still involved in that kind of work?
Well, I still teach ballet classes to professional dancers and to senior students, but now what I do mostly is that I work as a career consultant, career guide, and career coach for dance people. Mm-hmm. So I can continue to make a contribution and help people to be successful. Because one of the things that always gave me a kick when I was an artistic director was when I was able to facilitate success for someone, whether it was through good casting or a promotion or creating an opportunity for someone to do something different. That always gave me a kick. So now, of course, even though I'm not in that sort of position of authority anymore, I can continue to make people successful through helping them with career development in all sorts of ways. So I work with dance people across the board for career development, personal development, and so on, as a career coach. I work with them on Zoom. I work with other people as well, by the way. I mean, it's not only dance people, but mainly dance people, because that's where I come from, and it's the people that I have an empathy with and that I understand. So a lot of dance people come to me for that sort of thing. Yeah.
And how can people get hold of you if our viewers are watching this? That I need to speak to Matz. How can they get hold of you as a coach? And the details will go across the screen too.
I guess they have to Google me. Find my website and or my LinkedIn profile and so on. I connect with a lot of people via LinkedIn, and of course, because I've been fortunate enough to have a quite successful career in the dance world, a lot of people are already aware of who I am and so on. So that helps, even though as I'm getting older now, I'm sort of starting to fade out and fade into the background a little bit more. There's new generations taking over. But yes, I'm not difficult to find.
Fantastic. We do have his contact details rolling across the screen. If you'd like to reach out to Matz, because I think it is wonderful, and especially for dancers, well, any professional sports person. So when they're coming to the end of their professional career, because that's been their lifeblood for so long, especially dancers who have a passion, or any sports, we have a real passion for what they do. When their career is beginning to come to an end, it must feel quite scary. What do I do? Do I just teach? Can I only just teach, or are there opportunities? So somebody like you to help them realize the full kind of vista of opportunity for their skills and for what they can do, I think is really important.
It can be a daunting time when, as you say, you come closer to that time in your life when your career is starting to come to an end. Yes, it's because most dancers, if they have been working at a fairly high level of excellence, and I suppose those are the people we're talking about here, will have been invested in that lifestyle for many, many years, maybe 15, 20 years. I mean, since they were children, basically, or maybe young teenagers, and up until the late 30s, so it could be, I was dancing basically for 25 years of my life. So yes, it can be daunting, and that's when you need sometimes a helping hand, how to move on.
Yeah, because moving on can be difficult for the best of us, can't it? If we're stuck in our careers, or we're stuck in a rut with either our professions or our life choices or whatever, getting out of that hump, getting over that hump, or out of that rut can be quite difficult for the best of us. But when you have invested your heart and soul in a career since you were, say, 3, and at 33, you'll then find it, what now?
It's not just heart and soul, it's also that your identity becomes part of it. Your identity is part of that, of being a dancer. You can't perceive yourself in another light, which is an interesting thing, which I often come across in my conversations with people that are in that transition stage.
Yeah, it must be hard. Who am I? What do I do? What will I be? It must be hard. So
do you have any top tips for aspiring ballet dancers, young ballet dancers, and possibly for those coming towards the end of their career?
Well, those are the two ends of the scale here. We're talking about aspiring dancers to start with. It's really hard. It's much harder to become successful today than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. There's a huge competition out there. Lots of very well-trained, excellent dancers on the market, all looking for work. And what's the best advice? It's to be quite pragmatic about it, quite philosophical about your chances. Maybe not necessarily chase success, but try to have find satisfaction in your work, because the danger is when you only chasing success is that you will never become, because we never becomes quite as successful as we would like to be. No one ever does. So just find satisfaction in your day-to-day work. That's important, because then you can go through a dancing career knowing that you will have had pleasure out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that kind of letting go of the outcome almost, and you find that in a lot of people when they're so driven towards that particular thing. It's almost like chasing perfection, and perfection doesn't exist. If I try this and I've got to get to this point and this level, and you'd actually do a lot better just taking a breath and stepping back and enjoying the moment a lot more, because when you're doing that, you're freer and you're more likely to give your best performance if you haven't got that.
I often have conversations about perfection and the fallacy of perfection. And I say perfection, as you say, doesn't exist. But what does exist and what is possible to attain is excellence. Because the excellence is a dynamic phenomenon that you can achieve at any level of development, any stage in your life. You can be excellent because it's about your personal integrity, your intentions, about your attitudes and so on. That's what makes you excellent. So forget about perfection and just be excellent.
I like that. Forget about perfection, just be excellent. I'm going to put that on a quote somewhere.
Okay, do you have a tip for somebody who's thinking, like Melanie's young son James, thinking of becoming a ballet dancer? What would you say to him, or to a younger you, or to young boys of his age?
Well, it depends on what age we're talking about here.
At 9.
Yeah, 9. Well, I would say just enjoy it day to day for now, and then see as time passes how you feel about it, and be prepared to change. But go with it, and if it's fun, then it's the right thing. And when it stops being fun, then it's no longer the right thing to do. So at 9 years of age, I mean, yes, it's going to be bloody hard work if you want to make it all the way through for the next 10 years of training, because that's what it will take from 9. It'll take another 10 years. And if you're prepared for that, then yes, hey, go for it.
Yeah. But your soul has to be in it, doesn't it? I mean, but then a lot of
your soul has to be in it. Otherwise, it's just no point.
Do it for the love. You do it for the love, and the dance and the music, and yeah, I think that's good. Just as long as you're enjoying it.
Even if he decides later on, when he's in his late teens or mid-teens or whatever, that no, actually this isn't for me, it's still a very good grounding. Because Melanie mentioned earlier, just the deportment of ballet dancers is just beautiful to watch. You can always see when somebody's got ballet training, the way they hold themselves, the way they move. So that will stand him in good stead, even if he decides to become more an actor rather than a ballet dancer. It's not training that will go to any waste, is it?
Well, I have I know a young man. He started ballet training as he was about 8, 9, 10. He was doing ballet classes. He is now a policeman working in very rough environments in an armed capacity. So there you see. And I suppose it worked very well for him. No one has, wasn't a hindrance to him to become a policeman.
No, but I bet he could, but with that ballet training, if somebody comes at him with a knife or a thumb, I bet he can move out the way really quickly.
Possibly.
He'll be able to bend in ways that normal people won't. He'll be able to,
Well, I wouldn't use ballet dancing as a self-defense technique, but
and what about giving us some top tips for ballet dancers, or not just ballet dancers, any dancers who have had a career, a performance career, and they're coming to an end of that, physically and mentally? What advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, I can think of three things that is good to keep in mind. First of all, because any dancing career, whether you contemporary dance or classical ballet or whatever, it's going to come to an end. And be prepared. Don't wait until that end comes before you decide what to do. My experience have always been is that the dancers that already have a vision early on in life of what they will do beyond ballet dancing, beyond dancing career, they are the ones that also work better in the present moment, because they have a vision of where they're going towards. People that don't have that vision usually don't do very well. So start early on and be prepared for what that next step might be. And the other thing is, understand that we often talk about the qualities that dancers develop of discipline and work ethic and strong commitment and all of that, and those sort of transferable skills, which is true, but also recognize that you have developed those skills under very specific circumstances, in a very specific context. So don't take those personal qualities for granted, because they may not be so easily transferable as you think. So understand that, understand where you come from, and that you actually might be moving into a different environment where you need a different kind of commitment, a different kind of work ethic. So that's one thing. And the third thing is that don't stop being a dancer. A lot of dancers that come towards the end of their career struggle with the fact that they have to stop being dancers. You don't have to. You can continue to be a dancer, even if you don't dance actively. Having been a dancer means that you will always be a dancer. In your mind, in your spirit, that's where you belong. So just hang on to it. Be a dancer by all means. Do something else, maybe pursue a different profession. But you don't have to stop being a dancer. You don't have to give up on that identity, and that's important.
Yeah, I like that. Absolutely. You're a dancer. You're a dancer. It's in your soul. If you're an artist, you're an artist. If you're if you're creative, you're a creative. If you're a sports person, you're a sports person. You don't have to stop being that thing just because you stop being at the top tier professionally. You'll always be, that will always be part of you. I think that's very, very wise words. Now we've come to the part of the show where we're going to dig into your psyche a little bit, Matz.
Oh dear.
Your dancers.
Now I'm worried.
We're going to ask some questions about, I'm going to ask you to pick a card, a values jam card. We're going to play the values jams. We're going to ask you about a value. And because we're creatives on this show, we're going to ask you creatively about that value. So it's not you've never been asked about values in this particular way ever, and you probably won't ever be again. But I shall run my finger along the cards, and you just say stop when you got one. Stop. Out here. You can't see it. About here.
That looks like a good card.
Right, let's have a look. What did you pick? Let's have a look. Ooh, this is a good one for your profession now. You picked the value of openness. Openness, which I think is quite good. So we're going to ask you, Matz, creatively about openness. What does openness mean to you, Matz? What does it look, feel, and sound like?
Having an open mind. And that's, of course, working in the arts, you need to have an open mind. You need to be open for new influences and experimentation and so on. And openness also on a personal level, that you actually make yourself accessible to other people. You're being a nice person, basically. I think that's really important. Just be kind, be open, be kind and nice. But openness also in the sense of being open to new impressions, new ideas, and being open to experimentation. That's really important.
Yeah, I think so. What does it feel like?
It feels like sometimes a bit scary, because you might be entering into something new. And of course, change is always scary. Even good change is a little bit scary. So it can be a little bit scary, but it's also it's liberating. Feels liberating once you arrive.
If it had a sound, what would it sound like?
I think probably a gentle breeze through the treetops, movement, the leaves moving along, and yeah. So I think a gentle breeze in the air.
Yeah, I like that. Gentle breeze wafting through the trees. And if it had a smell, what would it smell like?
She's pushing you now. She's pushing you. Pushing you.
I know. Yeah.
Good. Smell like, yeah.
I've stumped you there.
Yeah, you have actually. I'm trying. Shall I pick a sweet smell or shall I pick a savory one? I'm trying to make up my mind here. But I guess.
What's the first thing that pops into your head?
Well, I would pick something savory because that's a bit more challenging. Sweetness is easy to take on board. Something that more savory might require a little bit more thought, a little bit more open-mindedness, openness.
Interesting. I love it. I love very, very good answers. We only put that one in because I did say that by mistake in one of my previous interviews. I meant to say, what does it sound like? And it came out the smell. And I thought, actually, that's quite a good question. So we kept it in, as you do. But that's brilliant. Lovely, lovely, lovely getting into your mind a little bit there. And I agree. I do like the sound of openness, of the swishing through the trees. I think that's a lovely, I can see that and sort of smell the fresh air. For me, it's like this fresh air and being out in the open. I love it. I love it. I love it. But on that note, can you believe we have run out of time? We've done our hour nearly already. I can't believe it. But thank you, Matz, so much for joining us on the couch and sharing your stories with us, your career with us, your beautiful dance, and the pictures that we have had throughout this interview that have come up of the beautiful ballet. And it won't be long before I come and see another one very soon, I think. And thank you to Julie for joining me on the couch as well.
And thank you to you for joining me on the couch. And thank you to Matt for being such a wonderful guest on the couch. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, ladies. It's been lovely to meet you and to have this conversation. So a real privilege. Thank you.
Oh, that's it, folks. Until next time, we'll see you